This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, April 15th, 1977, a new era in Montreal, Quebec, Canada had opened up. The Montreal Expos were moving from Jerry Park to Olympic Stadium to play baseball. The stadium was there for leftover from the 1976 Olympics, and they figured they could play baseball in Montreal at Olympic Stadium. So anyway, the Philadelphia Phillies, who were 0-4 to start the 77 season, would face the 2-2 Montreal Expos. It was a Friday afternoon game at Olympic Stadium. 57,592 fans crammed into the Olympic Stadium to be playing for them. It was a good time to be an Expos fan. So anyway, before we get more into the game, the actual game that happened, let's talk about the Expos at Jerry Park. Jerry Park was a 20,000 plus seat stadium that somehow was a major league ballpark. A lot of people would scoff at that. And the problem was that Montreal needed to prove they could have Major League Baseball at a stadium that fit MLB standards, or else they would lose the franchise potentially. Despite all that, they were allowed to play at Jerry Park, which was just basically a municipal park with slapping seats on it and having that right past the right field fence a potential hazard. In the summer, you got the swimming pool, and in the winter, you got snowdrifts and all that. So the Expos had fun at Cherry Park, and the fans were there giving them pride and all that. And it was weird seeing the stadium and all that, like watching games played at Jerry Park when you can't. But the fact of the matter was that it was too small, and Montreal just wanted a new stadium. Fortunately, they had it out because Montreal in 1970 was given the chance to host the 1976 Summer Olympics. And so they did, and it was a decent Olympics. Bruce Jenner was big for the United States when he was Bruce Jenner, when Caitlin was Bruce. And Canada won 11 medals, but no golds, which, you know, was the first time ever a host nation was shut out of an Olympics by with gold medals, winter or summer. But yeah, 1976 was just amazing in Canada and all that. So anyway, the Olympics were there, and so the Expos decided to turn their Olympic stadium into a baseball stadium. Unfortunately, though, Olympic Stadium was cavernous, and it was like, how can you fit baseball in there? Like, it's too big for baseball. But they made it work. So anyway, the Phillies would play the Expos in the first ever game at Olympic Stadium. The Phillies had Jay Johnstone, that practical joker in right field, Larry Boa, the snake, in center, short, sorry, Gary Maddox at center, Greg the Bull Lucinski left, Mike Schmidt at third, Tim McCarver, recently deceased, at catcher, Dane Orge at first, Ted Sizemore at second, and Steve Carlton, lefty as they call him, pitching. Expos had Dave Cash at second base in a fruitless attempt to help out, and Dave Cash was just nothing, playing against his former team as well. Shortstop was Tim Foley. Right field, Alice Valentine, who was a great outfielder before drugs and a massive injury derailed him. Tony Perez at first base, the former Red, part of Big Red Machine. Larry Parrish at third base. Gary Carter, the kid, at catcher. Andre the Hawk Dawson in center. Warren Cromartie playing left field this time. And Don Stanhouse, who was known as Six Pack because Lasorda would smoke 6 packs of cigarettes every time Stanhouse was on the mound. Apparently. So the first batter in Olympic Stadium history was Jay Johnstone, who flew out to left field. The first Expo hitter was Dave Cash, who had a single, but no RBI. Anyway, the Phillies scored 3 runs in the second inning thanks to a RBI double by Dane Orge and a 2 RBI double by Jay Johnstone, who proved he was a good player and not just a practical joker and doing 2 baseball books, which I read the second one. Alice Valentine would hit the first home run in Olympic Stadium history, hitting a pitch from Carlton in the bottom third for a home run to make it 3-1. Phillies would make it 5-1 thanks to a single by Steve Carlton, of all people, with an RBI single, and Larry Boa reaching on a botched ground ball by Cash, scoring Dane Orge. Greg Lucinski would hit a 2-run home run off Dan Warvin in the 7th to make it 7-1. And despite a ground ball RBI by Ellis Valentine, the Expos couldn't do anything. As lefty aka Steve Carlton, as it was known, went the full distance, the full 9 innings, giving up 2 runs on 10 hits. The Expos only gave up 7 hits to the Phillies, but gave up 7 runs. Stan House, Jackie Brown, Morphin, and Bill Atkinson, who was Canadian, by the way, from Chatham, if memory serves me right. I think, or was it Stratford? Nope, I'm right, Chatham. You you went to Chatham High School, so yeah, so it was Chatham, Ontario. After all that, the Expos would drop a 7-2 decision to the Philadelphia Phillies. So, thus, Expos lost their first game at Olympic Stadium. They won the next day, but still, the first game in Olympic Stadium history was huge. 56,000 braved themselves. Now, of course, Olympic Stadium was plagued by a lot of delays with the stadium. They were supposed to have a state of the art retractable roof placed on the stadium in time for the 1976 Olympics, or even a roof, but they didn't have a roof and all that because it was sitting in storage in France, collecting dust and collecting massive interest that they had to pay to get the roof over. They got the roof to Montreal in 1988 of all years. And it did work a few times, but unfortunately, high winds and a few other factors that they didn't factor in with Montreal weather ruined it. And eventually, it became a fixed dome by the 90s and served as the Expos' home until the Expos moved to Washington in 2005. The Expos were a pretty good team and all that. Like the late 70s, they were blossoming. 1979, they were close to winning the division, but Pittsburgh narrowly beat them and then had the audacity to win the World Series. 1980, second last game of the season at Olympic Stadium, Mike Schmidt in the 10th inning hitting that home run off Stan Boston to give the Phillies the division and then subsequently the World Series title later on. Expos would win the second half of the 1981 season flag, because of the strike ruining most of the season. So the Expos got to play the Phillies in a playoff series. Game 1 and 2 were at Stade Olympique in the best of five, and the Expos won that. Expos would then lose two straight before winning Game 5 on Veteran Stadium turf. So that means the Expos got to host at least a couple of LCS games against the Dodgers, which was best of five at the time. Who can forget Jerry White's 3-run home run in Game 3 that brought the Expos onto their feet and winning the series and having the series up 2 games to 1. Unfortunately, the Expos couldn't finish the job, and San Olympique was where Blue Monday happened. Still a sore spot for Expo fans to this day. Olympic Stadium had its downfalls and all that. The sight lines were bad, it was cavernous, and a giant chunk of concrete actually broke off the stadium, which meant that the Expos in September 91 couldn't play at home. They would have to play their home games, quote unquote, in other stadiums. Fortunately, though, Olympic Stadium went through a good renovation in 92 and changed a lot of things and, made the stadium more friend friendly. Expos used that to their advantage with back to back second place finishes in the NL East 92 to the Pirates and 93 to the Braves, in which a lot of people said that the Expos were just too little too late in getting the divisions and all that. 94, the Expos were the best team in baseball, and it looked like Olympic Stadium was going to host some postseason games, but unfortunately, we all know about that stupid strike. So that ruined it, and then Olympic Stadium was just a shell of itself with the Kevlar roof and a lot of things happening. They did host Blue Jay exhibition games, but at what cost? So anyway, Stade Olympique, decent stadium? Nah, probably not. But it held the Expos together like glue, and you can't beat that. Anyway, I'm jumped on to do.